The first time I saw her face again, I was standing in my kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. It was one of those quiet mornings when the house still smelled faintly of toast and detergent. The kind where nothing feels wrong, until suddenly everything does. She was there, on the driveway next door, laughing, carrying a box with both hands. And my husband, no Ethan, was outside pretending to fix the gutter, though I knew he was really just watching her. His movements were too deliberate, too slow, as if each hammer hit was a disguise. I froze. The world tilted, not because of what I saw, but because of what I knew. Her name was Vanessa. 6 months ago, she had been the shadow in my marriage. The woman behind the text messages, the perfume that lingered on his jacket, the one who almost destroyed my family. And now somehow impossibly she was my new neighbor. Before that day, I used to believe in the quiet safety of routine. I woke up early to make breakfast, packed lunches for our twins, Olivia and Jack, and saw them off to school. Ethan would usually be at the table by then, pretending to read emails, smiling at me like a man who had nothing to hide. We'd been married for 12 years, 12 solid, sometimes boring years. Our love wasn't fireworks anymore. It was more like warm tea. Predictable, soothing, but maybe too mild to keep either of us awake. He worked in finance. I taught part-time at the elementary school nearby. We were a normal couple in a quiet neighborhood where people waved more than they talked, and everyone's lawn looked the same. I used to love the sound of our evenings, the clink of cutlery, the kids' laughter bouncing down the hall, the faint hum of the dishwasher after dinner. It felt like home, like stability, until the day it didn't. The affair came out one night when his phone lit up on the kitchen counter. I hadn't meant to look. I was wiping crumbs when I saw the message flash across the screen. I miss your hands. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need it to be. My stomach clenched. I remember the hum of the refrigerator in the silence that followed. The sound of my heart drumming in my ears. I waited until he came downstairs, casual as ever, asking if I'd seen his charger. And I asked him calmly, too calmly, "Who's Vanessa?" The color drained from his face so fast it scared me. He didn't even ask how I knew. That silence, that single, suffocating silence, was louder than any confession. We spent that night on opposite sides of the bed, not speaking. I remember the ceiling fan clicking, and every turn of its blades felt like time counting down the death of something sacred. By morning he admitted it all. 6 months. He said it was a mistake, that it just happened, that he loved me, not her. The words came out rehearsed, almost professional. I wanted to scream, but the kids were awake. Olivia needed help with her ponytail. Jack couldn't find his shoes. Life didn't stop because my heart broke. It just kept going, indifferent. So I swallowed my pride. I told him if he wanted to stay, if he wanted our family, he had to end it completely. And somehow, I forgave him. Or at least I told myself I did. The months that followed were strange. He tried, he really did. Flowers on the counter, date nights, small gestures. But forgiveness isn't a door you can just open and walk through. It's more like a wound that scabs over but still aches when it rains, that I kept waiting to feel something like peace. I prayed for it. Every Sunday, I sat in the back pew of church, gripping my hands tight, asking God to take the bitterness away. And maybe he did for a while. Because I started to breathe again. The kids were doing well, the laughter returned. Ethan seemed different, more present, more careful. Until that morning when the moving truck pulled up next door. At first, I didn't recognize her. She was wearing sunglasses, her hair longer now, dyed a lighter brown. She waved politely as she carried a box up her new driveway. I almost waved back out of habit. Then she turned toward Ethan. He was on our front lawn, fixing the gutter, pretending not to look. But the way his shoulders stiffened gave him away. That's when it hit me, the sick, undeniable truth. She hadn't just moved to this neighborhood by chance. She was there next door for a reason. And Ethan knew. The rest of that morning felt unreal. I stood by the window, coffee forgotten, while my mind raced. My heart didn't even know what to feel. Anger, disbelief, humiliation. They all swirled together like a storm. How could he? After all the tears, the therapy, the late-night promises. How could he let her move next door? I waited until the kids were gone before confronting him. He came inside, wiping his hands on a rag, pretending innocence. She moved in, I said quietly. He froze. Ooh. I just stared. Don't insult me, Ethan. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. It's not what you think. She's not. Save it, I interrupted. You knew she was coming, didn't you? He didn't answer. His silence was the same one that had broken me before. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to the faint sound of laughter through the wall we now shared with her. Each giggle felt like a slap. Forgiveness, I realized, had an expiration date. The next morning, I watched from the porch as Vanessa decorated her garden. She was humming, like she hadn't wrecked a home just months ago. And something in me hardened. Not hatred. Not quite revenge. But a cold, steady resolve. If she wanted to live next door to me, I'd let her. But not in peace. In the days that followed, I learned that pain has a strange way of disguising itself as composure. To anyone else, I probably looked fine. I kept my routine, smiled at neighbors, and even baked cookies for the twins' school fundraiser. But inside, I was unraveling quietly, like a thread being pulled from a favorite sweater. Every morning, I watched Vanessa's life unfold next door. The moving truck was replaced by a silver car. A new welcome mat appeared outside her door, one that said, "Good vibes only." The irony almost made me laugh. I saw her chatting with other women on the street, always dressed perfectly casual, with that effortless charm that once fooled my husband too. She moved through life like she belonged here, like she wasn't the reason my marriage had cracks running through it. And then there was Ethan. He started leaving earlier for work again, coming home later, always caught in meetings or traffic. I told myself I wouldn't fall for paranoia this time, that I wouldn't play detective. But the small things started adding up. His shirt smelled faintly of a perfume I didn't wear. He started jogging again, even though he'd hated running our entire marriage. And then one night, when he got home, his phone buzzed and he silenced it faster than I could blink. The next morning, I decided to take a walk. Not for exercise, I just needed air. As I passed Vanessa's house, I noticed her blinds were half open. Inside, boxes were still stacked along the walls, but the kitchen looked familiar. Too familiar. The same coffee machine Ethan and I had once picked out together. The same set of ceramic mugs. I recognized the chipped one on the counter. It was impossible that I froze, staring through the glass. My stomach turned. That's when I saw something even worse. A shirt, his shirt, draped casually over the back of her chair. I knew that pattern. Blue plaid. The one I'd folded just 2 days ago. I felt my heart drop straight to my knees. I walked back home in a daze. I didn't remember locking the door, didn't remember turning off the stove, didn't even remember taking off my shoes. When Ethan came home that evening, I didn't ask him about it. Not yet. I wanted to see how deep the lie went. So I waited. That night, when he went to shower, I quietly unlocked his phone with the code he'd forgotten I still knew. Our wedding date. The message thread with her was gone, of course. He'd learned from the first time. But there were clues. Venmo payments labeled utilities, a calendar event called Delivery for Neighbor, a photo thumbnail half-cropped that looked suspiciously like her living room. The pieces fit too neatly. It wasn't just an affair. It was an arrangement. He had helped her move in. He was paying her bills. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook so hard the phone nearly fell from my grip. He stepped out of the shower a moment later, towel around his waist, humming. The same tone she used when tending her garden. He saw me sitting on the bed, phone in my hand. And just like that, his smile faltered. "Ethan," I said quietly. "How long have you been helping her?" He froze, eyes darting to his phone. "What are you talking about?" I held his gaze. "The payments. The utilities. The delivery for Neighbor. Don't insult me again." He sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. "It's not like that, Claire. She needed help settling in. It's complicated." "Complicated," I repeated. "That's what we call adultery now." "It's not," he began, but I cut him off. "Don't lie to me, Ethan. Not again." He sat down, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "She doesn't have anyone here," he said finally. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay. That's all." I laughed, a sound so hollow it startled even me. So now you're her savior? He didn't answer. The silence between us stretched until it became unbearable. Finally, I stood up. I forgave you once, I said. That was my mistake. Then I walked out, not of the house, but of the argument. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. Over the next few days, things grew tense. The kids could sense it, though I tried to hide it. Olivia asked one night, "Mom, why are you and Dad always quiet now?" I smiled and said something about being tired, but my voice cracked halfway through. I knew I couldn't keep living like that, trapped between anger and pretending. So I started writing everything down. Every lie, every detail, every odd behavior. Not to use it against him, but to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That's when the idea came to me. It started as a whisper, a single, sharp thought that grew louder each time I heard their laughter from next door. If they wanted to play neighbors, fine. But I was done being the quiet, forgiving wife. It was time for them to learn what real exposure felt like. The opportunity came faster than I expected. One Saturday morning, Vanessa hosted a small housewarming party. I saw the balloons from my kitchen window, heard the faint hum of music, smelled barbecue smoke drifting across our fence. Ethan was running errands that day. Of course he was. And when I peeked through the blinds, I saw him, right there, in her backyard, laughing with her friends, flipping burgers like a man with nothing to lose. That was when my calmness returned. Not the kind that comes from peace, but the kind that comes from purpose. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to cry. I just needed to wait. Because when people build their lies in plain sight, all you have to do is give them a spotlight. That night, as I stood at my window watching the party wind down, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. They thought they were safe because I was silent. But silence, I realized, can be the loudest threat of all. The next morning, everything looked normal. Birds sang, sprinklers hissed across the lawns, and somewhere, a child's laughter echoed down the street. But I knew better. The kind of calm that follows betrayal isn't peace, it's the pause before a storm. Ethan acted as if nothing had happened. He kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, told me he'd be late again because of a new client. I smiled. Of course, I said sweetly. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I pulled out my laptop. If he thought I was just going to cry quietly in the corner like before, he was about to find out who I really was. I started by looking up Vanessa's name, full name, address, background. It didn't take long. People always leave traces online. Her LinkedIn profile said she'd recently moved here after a difficult separation. There were a few mutual connections too, real estate agents, a moving company, and one name that made my stomach tighten. Ethan's co-worker. He had helped her find this house. The pieces clicked together like a cruel puzzle. He'd convinced her to move next door to me, keeping his secret where he could watch both lives at once. My hands trembled, but not from sadness anymore, from anger. That night, I decided I wouldn't confront him again. Confrontations give people a chance to lie. No, I wanted something better, truth with witnesses. And maybe a little justice. I waited 2 days. On Wednesday, I called the real estate agent listed on Vanessa's property ad. "Hi," I said, pretending to sound curious. "I'm thinking of buying a house on your street that I saw that the one next to mine sold recently. Could you tell me who handled that purchase?" "Oh sure," she chirped. "That would have been handled by Ethan Miller. Great guy, works fast." My breath hitched. "Ethan Miller," I repeated. "Yes, he's very thorough." I hung up, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. He hadn't just helped her move here. He'd bought the house under her name. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a full-blown double life. That evening, I cooked dinner like everything was fine, roast chicken his favorite. We sat at the table, the kids chatting happily about school. Ethan smiled, completely unaware that the ground beneath his lies was cracking. When the kids went upstairs, I poured him another glass of wine. "So," I said casually, "how's work?" "Still helping new clients find homes." He blinked, slightly thrown off. Pretty busy this month." I nodded slowly. "That's good. You've always had a talent for making people feel at home." He smiled, not realizing the venom hidden in my words. By the time he left for his late-night client meeting, I had already made my decision. The next morning, I visited Vanessa's house. She answered the door in a silk robe, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, Claire. Is everything okay?" I smiled politely. "Yes. I just wanted to welcome you properly. You've been so busy lately." She looked relieved, or maybe nervous. "That's so sweet of you. Kumein." Her home was almost a mirror of mine. Same paint color, same layout, even the same scent of coffee and cedarwood. But there was one difference, a photo frame on the mantel. Ethan, standing beside her, both of them laughing, his arm around her waist. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let it show. "That's a lovely photo," I said softly. She hesitated. "It's from a work event." "Of course," I replied, my voice calm and steady. "Everything you two do seems to be work-related, doesn't it?" Her face paled. Before she could speak, I leaned in slightly and whispered, "Don't worry. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to say it's brave, you know. Moving in next to the woman whose life you helped ruin." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I smiled one last time, then turned and walked away. That night, I started the real plan. I gathered everything, screenshots, payments, photos, the real estate confirmation, even that smiling picture on her mantel. Then I created an anonymous email account. To Ethan's office HR department. Subject: Potential conflict of interest. Please review. Attached were all the files, neatly labeled with a short note. This employee has been engaging in an undisclosed personal and financial relationship with a client. This could affect the company's reputation. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Sometimes truth speaks loudly enough on its own. 2 days later, Ethan came home early, face pale, eyes hollow. "They suspended me," he said quietly. "Pending investigation." I didn't even pretend to be shocked. "Oh no," I said softly. "That's terrible." He looked at me, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "You wouldn't have anything to do with this, would you?" I tilted my head. "Why would I? You said it was just business." He didn't answer. That night, he slept on the couch. The silence in the house was heavy, but peaceful. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. By the weekend, Vanessa's perfect calm began to crack too. I saw movers outside her house again, this time, loading boxes out. Her car was gone by evening. The next morning, a for sale sign stood crooked in her yard. Ethan didn't go to work that day. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, while I poured myself coffee and watched the sunrise. Finally he looked up. "You destroyed everything," he said. I met his eyes, calm and cold. "No, Ethan. You did. I just showed everyone the truth." He moved out a week later. The kids asked if he'd be coming back. I told them honestly, not for a while. When the house next door finally sold again, I watched the new family move in. A young couple, kind smiles, no secrets. For the first time in a long while, the street felt peaceful again. And as I stood there, coffee in hand, watching the sunlight spill across 2 quiet lawns, I realized something. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just justice served cold. The silence after someone leaves is different. When Ethan finally moved out, it wasn't the kind of silence that hurt. It was the kind that hummed softly with relief. I remember standing in the kitchen the morning after he left. His coffee mug was still on the counter, the one with the little chip on the rim that he always said gave it character. For a moment, I stared at it, half expecting him to come down the stairs, tie crooked, muttering about being late for work. But he didn't. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of waiting for someone who didn't really see me anymore. The kids took it differently. Liam, my oldest, was quiet. He'd always been more observant than talkative, watching things he couldn't quite understand yet. One evening he asked, "Mom, did Dad do something bad?" I froze, the knife still in my hand as I chopped vegetables. I looked down at him, those same gray eyes as his father's but softer, kinder. I knelt to his level. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," I said gently. "But what matters most is what we do after." He frowned. "Are you sad?" I smiled faintly. "Not anymore." He seemed to think about that for a moment, then nodded, satisfied with my answer. Children don't need all the details. They just need stability. Truth in doses small enough for their hearts to carry. As weeks passed, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way sunlight danced across the living room curtains in the morning. The smell of cinnamon from the bakery down the street when the windows were open. The softness of quiet evenings when all you could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of pages turning. It was like life was gently reminding me, "You're still here. You're still you." I began painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned after marriage. My first piece was simple. 2 houses side by side, one bathed in warm yellow light, the other shadowed but empty. When I finished, I sat back and laughed softly to myself. It wasn't anger I felt anymore. It was closure, brushed onto canvas one color at a time. Ethan called a few times. At first, I ignored him. Then one evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I picked up. "Claire," he said quietly. His voice was different. No arrogance, no excuses. Just tired. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't speak for a long moment. The apology hung in the air between us like something fragile. "Do you even know what you're sorry for?" I asked finally. "For hurting you," he said. "For everything. I lost my job, Claire. My reputation's ruined. Vanessa's gone." I closed my eyes. "You didn't lose those things because of me. You lost them because of choices you made." He sighed, and for the first time, I heard something that almost sounded like acceptance. "I know," he said. I hope someday you can forgive me." I thought about it for a long time before answering. "Forgiveness isn't a gift I give you, Ethan," I said softly. "It's one I give myself. And I already did." There was silence on the line. Then he whispered, "You always were stronger than me." And just like that, I hung up. Not out of spite, but peace. Some conversations don't need closure. They just need an ending. Months went by. The kids grew happier, lighter. I did too. I started volunteering at the community art center, teaching kids how to paint. Watching them create something from nothing reminded me of my own healing. Messy, unpredictable, but beautiful all the same. One Saturday morning, as I was cleaning brushes after class, a woman approached me. She looked familiar, soft curls, bright eyes. "Hi," she said warmly. "You're Claire, right? We just moved into the house next to yours." I smiled. "Welcome to the neighborhood." She laughed. "I heard it's a quiet street." "It is now," I said with a small smile. That night, as I sat by the window, I looked out at the 2 houses again. Ours, filled with laughter and the smell of homemade cookies. Theirs, new, full of promise. And I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over pain, dignity over destruction. I used to think forgiving Ethan was weakness. But now I knew it was freedom. Because when you stop trying to fix someone else's brokenness, you finally have room to rebuild your own strength. A few months later, Ethan sent me an email. He'd moved to another city, started therapy, and found a new job. He said he was trying to be a better father. And that was enough for me. Not because I wanted him back, but because I wanted him to grow. For the sake of our children, for the sake of who we both used to be. That's the strange thing about love. It changes shape, but it doesn't disappear. Sometimes, it just becomes softer, quieter, tucked away in the corners of who we once were. One evening, as I tucked my daughter Emma into bed, she asked, "Mom, are you happy now?" I paused, thinking about everything. The lies, the heartbreak, the long nights crying alone, the mornings rebuilding piece by piece. "Yes," I said finally. "I'm happy." She smiled sleepily. "Good. Because you laugh more now." Her words hit deeper than she knew. When I closed her door and walked back to the quiet living room, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time, I saw not a betrayed wife, not a victim, but a woman who had survived, healed, and learned to smile again. And that, I realized, was my real revenge. Not exposing him, not the chaos, not the whispers in the neighborhood. My real revenge was peace. Peace so loud, it drowned out every echo of the pain he left behind. Sometimes I still think about that night. The one when I stood at my window, watching the porch lights flicker between 2 homes that used to hold such different meanings. One filled with deceit. the other now with peace. It's strange how time softens even the sharpest edges of betrayal. The pain that once lived like a constant storm inside me has quieted to a drizzle. Barely noticeable, unless I look back too long. I used to believe forgiveness was about saying, it's okay. But it isn't. It's about saying, it happened, and I'm choosing not to carry it anymore. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Letting go. Not because they deserve peace, but because you do. I never planned to expose Ethan. I never wanted revenge for the sake of cruelty. I just wanted the truth to stand where lies once lived. And when it finally did, I realized I didn't need him to fall for me to rise. That was my turning point. The moment I understood that the loudest kind of healing is the quiet kind. The one where you stop explaining, stop proving, stop replaying, and just start living again. If you've ever loved someone who broke you, I hope you remember this. You don't owe them endless explanations or another chance to wound you. You owe yourself peace. You owe your children laughter again. You owe your own heart the chance to feel light. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't fire, it's freedom. So tell me, would you have done what I did? Would you have forgiven? Even after finding her living next door? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if my story touched you, even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm May, and I'll see you in the next story. Because somewhere, someone else is finding their strength again, just like I did.